You're sitting across from a man who has killed 7 people. His hands are cuffed to the table. The room smells like disinfectant and something else, something metallic you can't quite name. He looks at you, and for just a moment his eyes are empty. Completely empty. Like staring into a house where no one has lived for years. Then he smiles. And that's when you realize something that will change everything you thought you knew about evil. He's not different from you. Not in the way you hoped. Not in the way that would let you sleep tonight. The thoughts that led him here, the mechanisms that turned fantasy into action, the psychological architecture of a mind that can end a life without flinching, these things aren't as foreign as you need them to be. And that's the first truth from death row. The distance between you and them is shorter than you think. Your mind is not entirely your own. Remember that. Because what you're about to hear comes from men and women who have sat in cells, waiting for execution, with nothing left to lose and no reason to lie. These are confessions, observations, psychological autopsies of their own deterioration. This isn't theory. This isn't speculation. This is what happens inside a killer's mind, told by the killers themselves. And some of it will sound familiar. Uncomfortably familiar. I've spent years studying forensic psychology, reading interview transcripts, analyzing the final statements of condemned prisoners, and speaking with profilers who've sat where you just imagined yourself sitting, across from monsters. Except they're not monsters. That's the problem. That's what makes this so dangerous to understand. They're human. Deeply, disturbingly human. And the mechanisms they describe, the psychological tactics they perfected, the ways they learned to manipulate and control and destroy, you've seen these before. In your workplace. In your relationships. In people you trusted. The difference is degree, not kind. And that should terrify you. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take you inside death row. Inside those final conversations. Inside the confessions that came too late to save anyone. And I'm going to show you 15 truths that death row inmates revealed about how a killer's mind actually works. Some of these truths will make you question people you know. Others will make you question yourself. All of them will change how you see the world. Because once you understand how they think, you'll start noticing the patterns everywhere. In the person who seems just a little too charming. In the one who never takes responsibility. In the face that smiles while the eyes calculate. Are you ready? Because there's no going back from this. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The first truth is the one that shatters everything. A serial killer in Florida, hours before his execution, said this to his psychiatrist. I didn't wake up one day and decide to kill. I woke up one day and realized I'd been practicing for years. Let that sink in. He'd been practicing. Not with weapons. Not with plans. With people. With manipulation. With control. He described how, as a teenager, he would test boundaries. Small lies to see if people believed him. Fake emotions to see if people responded. He'd pretend to be hurt to watch his mother panic. He'd create conflict between friends to see if he could control the outcome. He called it rehearsal. Every manipulation was a dress rehearsal for something darker. And here's what makes your stomach turn. He said everyone does this to some degree. Everyone tests. Everyone manipulates. Everyone lies. The difference, he said, is that most people feel guilty and stop. He felt powerful and continued. Think about this right now. Have you ever tested someone? Told a small lie to see if you could get away with it? Created a situation to see how someone would react? Of course you have. We all have. But somewhere, for some people, that testing never stops. It evolves. It darkens. It becomes a game where human beings are just pieces on a board. And the scariest part? You can't tell who's still playing that game just by looking at them. Your mind is not entirely your own. Not when someone has been practicing on you for years. The second truth came from a woman on death row in Texas who poisoned 3 people over the course of a decade. She said something in her final interview that forensic psychologists have quoted ever since. I didn't see them as people. I saw them as problems that needed solutions. This is what psychologists call dehumanization, but hearing her describe it was different. She explained it like this. When you have a headache, you don't think about the headache's feelings. You don't consider its perspective. You just want it gone. That's how she saw people who inconvenienced her. Her husband who wanted a divorce. A problem. Her business partner who discovered her embezzlement. A problem. Her elderly mother who was changing her will. A problem. And problems, she said calmly, have solutions. But here's what she revealed that most people don't understand. This dehumanization didn't happen overnight. It was gradual. It started with small dismissals. Ignoring someone's feelings because they were inconvenient. Lying to avoid accountability. Justifying cruelty because the other person deserved it. She described it as a muscle you exercise. The more you practice seeing people as obstacles instead of humans, the stronger that muscle gets. Until one day, she said, I couldn't see them as real anymore even when I tried. Now pause. Who in your life talks about people this way? Who describes human beings as in the way, or the problem, or needing to be dealt with? Who has no empathy for anyone who inconveniences them? You know someone like this. Maybe you work with them. Maybe you're related to them. Maybe you dated them. They're not killers, but they've exercised that same muscle. They've practiced that same dehumanization. And every time you let it slide, every time you excuse it, every time you tell yourself, that's just how they are, you're watching the rehearsal for something you don't want to see the performance of. The third truth is about control. A man in California who killed his entire family told his psychologist something bone-chilling 3 days before his execution. I didn't kill them because I hated them. I killed them because I loved them too much. At first, this sounds insane. How can you kill someone you love? But he explained it in a way that made terrible, horrible sense. He said he couldn't stand the idea of them making choices he didn't approve of. His wife wanted to leave him. His teenage daughter was dating someone he didn't like. His son was planning to move across the country for college. He described feeling like he was losing control of the narrative. That was his phrase. Losing control of the narrative. So he decided to end the story on his terms. If he couldn't control how they lived, he would control how they died. This is the dark end of a spectrum you've seen before. Think about the partner who checks your phone constantly. The parent who threatens to disown you if you make your own choices. The friend who punishes you with silence when you don't do what they want. The coworker who sabotages your project because they can't stand you succeeding independently. These are control addicts. And what death row has taught us is this. When a control addict feels control slipping away completely, they don't surrender. They escalate. Sometimes that escalation is just emotional terrorism. Sometimes it's violence. And sometimes, in the worst cases, it's murder. Because to them, the loss of control feels like death anyway. So they'd rather cause actual death than live with the feeling of powerlessness. Has anyone ever said to you, if I can't have you, no one can? Has anyone ever destroyed something you love just because they couldn't control it? Has anyone ever hurt you specifically because you tried to establish independence? Pay attention. You're witnessing the same psychology that ends in the worst possible outcomes. Just earlier on the spectrum, your mind is not entirely your own, especially when someone believes they own it. The fourth truth came from a serial rapist and killer in Illinois who said something that made his defense attorney physically ill. The best part wasn't the act. It was the confusion in their eyes right before. When they realized I wasn't who they thought I was. This is the mask. The performance. The false self that predators construct to gain access to victims. And here's what's crucial. He said the mask wasn't hard to maintain because most people don't actually look closely. They see what they want to see. He described being charming at work, volunteering at church, helping neighbors with yard work, always smiling, always available. He said people would literally say to his face, "You're such a good guy." And every time they said it, he felt more powerful, because he was proving how easy they were to fool. But this is the part that should keep you up at night. He said you can spot the mask if you know what to look for. The mask is too perfect, too consistent. Real people have bad days. Real people show irritation sometimes. Real people are messy and contradictory. But people wearing masks never break character in public. They're always on. He said if you ever meet someone who seems too good to be true, who never shows negative emotion, who's always helpful and always charming and always calm, run. Because that level of control over your presentation isn't natural. It's practiced. And people who practice that hard are hiding something they know you'd run from if you saw it. Think right now about the people in your life who seem impossibly perfect, who never complain, who never seem stressed, who always have the right thing to say. I'm not telling you they're killers. I'm telling you that level of performance requires effort, and you should ask yourself what they're putting that effort into hiding. Because people who have nothing to hide don't work that hard to control your perception. The fifth truth is about rage. A man on death row in Georgia who beat someone to death said something that changed how I understand anger forever. I wasn't angry when I killed him. I'd been angry for 20 years. Killing him felt calm. This is what forensic psychologists call cold rage. It's not the hot, explosive anger you see in movies. It's the quiet, calculated anger that has been simmering so long it's become part of someone's baseline. He described it like this. Imagine you're walking around with a pot of boiling water in your chest. Every day, every slight, every perceived disrespect adds a little more heat. But you don't show it. You smile. You nod. You say, "It's fine." Meanwhile, that pot is boiling. And here's the danger. When it finally boils over, it doesn't feel like rage anymore. It feels like relief. Like you're finally doing what you should have done all along. He said the actual violence felt peaceful. Because the pressure was finally releasing. Now this is critical for you to understand. Cold rage doesn't announce itself. Hot rage you can see coming. Someone's face turns red. They raise their voice. They make threats. You know they're angry. But cold rage looks like calm. It looks like someone who's over it. Someone who suddenly seems fine with things that used to bother them. Someone who's gone quiet in a relationship or friendship that used to have conflict. And that's when you should be most afraid. Because silence after prolonged conflict doesn't mean they've made peace. It often means they've made a decision. Who in your life has gone suddenly, eerily calm after months or years of tension? Who used to fight with you but now just watches you with flat eyes? Who stopped arguing but also stopped engaging? You might think the conflict is over. It's not over. It's metastasizing into something colder. Something more dangerous. Your mind is not entirely your own. Especially when someone has decided yours isn't worth respecting anymore. The sixth truth is about justification. A woman who killed her children said this in her final statement, and it's been analyzed in forensic psychology textbooks ever since. I convinced myself I was saving them. And once I believed that, it was easy. This is the killer's superpower. The ability to reframe atrocity as mercy. She described building an entire narrative in her head. Her children would suffer in this cruel world. She was a bad mother. They'd be better off in heaven. She was actually doing something loving by ending their lives. And the more she repeated this story to herself, the more real it became. Until the day she acted on it felt not like murder, but like sacrifice. Like she was the hero of a tragic story. But here's what you need to hear. This justification mechanism isn't unique to killers. You use it too. Everyone does. Every time you hurt someone and tell yourself they deserved it. Every time you lie and tell yourself it was necessary. Every time you betray someone and tell yourself you had no choice. You're using the same psychological tool. You're rewriting reality so you can live with your actions. The difference between you and death row inmates is just how far you're willing to take it. They rewrote reality until murder seemed justified. What have you rewritten? What are you currently rewriting? And more importantly, who in your life is rewriting their treatment of you? When someone hurts you and immediately has a perfectly constructed explanation for why it was actually your fault or actually necessary or actually for your own good, that's the justification machine running. And it doesn't stop. It escalates. Because once someone can justify small cruelties, they can justify bigger ones. The mechanism is the same. Only the scale changes. The seventh truth came from one of the most disturbing interviews I've ever read. A serial killer in Oregon said, "I didn't choose my victims randomly. I chose the ones who looked like they needed someone." This is predatory empathy. It's not that predators lack empathy. Some of them have incredible empathy. They can read your emotional state better than your closest friends can. But they don't use that empathy to connect. They use it to exploit. He described walking through crowds and scanning for vulnerability. Someone walking with their head down. Someone who looked tired or sad or lost. Someone who seemed alone. And then he would approach with exactly what they needed. A compliment. An offer of help. A sympathetic ear. He said lonely people are the easiest targets because they're so grateful for attention that they ignore red flags they'd normally catch. So, think about this. Who in your life appeared exactly when you were vulnerable? Who showed up right after a breakup, a job loss, a family crisis, a moment when you felt invisible and desperate for someone to see you? And who seemed almost too perfect in that moment? Too understanding. Too available. Too eager to be exactly what you needed. I'm not saying everyone who offers help is a predator. I'm saying predators are incredibly good at identifying and approaching people in weakened states. And if someone entered your life during your lowest moment and immediately became central to it, you should ask yourself if they saw an opportunity you were too hurt to recognize. The eighth truth is about remorse, or the lack of it. A man in Tennessee who killed multiple people said something that his lawyer couldn't reconcile. I feel bad that I got caught. I feel bad that my life is over. But I don't feel bad about what I did to them. He explained that he tried to feel remorse because he knew he was supposed to. He'd watched movies, read books. He understood intellectually that guilt was the appropriate response. But when he searched inside himself, there was nothing. Just a blank space where that feeling should be. He compared it to being colorblind. Like everyone's describing the color red, and you're nodding along, but you have no idea what they're actually experiencing. That's how he experienced remorse. As a concept other people had that made no sense to him. This is the thing about certain types of predators. They learn to mimic remorse perfectly. They cry at the right times, say the right words, make the right facial expressions. But it's performance. And you can spot the difference if you pay attention. Real remorse changes behavior. Real remorse comes with accountability and concrete efforts to repair harm. But performed remorse is just emotion theater. It's designed to get them out of consequences. So they'll cry, apologize, promise to change, make you feel guilty for not forgiving them immediately. And then they'll do the same thing again. Because the remorse was never real. It was just the mask they wear when the real face would cost them something. Who in your life apologizes beautifully but never changes? Who cries and promises and begs for forgiveness but repeats the same harm 3 weeks later? That's not someone struggling to change. That's someone who's learned that the performance of remorse is easier than actual transformation. And every time you forgive that performance, you're teaching them the show works. Your mind is not entirely your own. Especially when someone has been performing for you instead of being real with you. The ninth truth is perhaps the most unsettling. A killer in Nevada said this in his final psychological evaluation. The first time was hard. By the fifth time, it felt like doing laundry. This is desensitization. The psychological numbing that happens when you repeat any act enough times. He described the first killing in detail. The hesitation. The physical shaking. The vomiting afterward. The nightmares. But each subsequent killing required less emotional energy. The horror faded. It became mechanical, routine. And eventually, he said, he felt nothing at all. It was just a task to complete. Now here's why this matters to you. Desensitization works on every behavior, not just extreme ones. The first time you lie to someone you love, it feels awful. By the 20th time, it's automatic. The first time you ignore someone's boundaries, you might feel guilty. By the 10th time, you don't even notice you're doing it. The first time you're cruel to someone, it stings your conscience. But cruelty repeated becomes habit. And habit repeated becomes character. This is how ordinary people do terrible things. Not in one dramatic moment. In 1,000 small moments where they made a choice and felt a little less each time. Who in your life treats cruelty casually? Who hurts people with the same emotional engagement as taking out the trash? They didn't start that way. No one does. They practiced. They desensitized. They numbed themselves to your humanity one boundary violation at a time. And the truly terrifying part? They might not even realize they're doing it anymore. It's just who they've become. The 10th truth came from a man in Alabama who said something 3 hours before his execution that made even the priest leave the room. If I could go back, I wouldn't stop myself. I'd just be more careful. No remorse. No regret for the acts themselves. Only regret for getting caught. This is the psychology of the true predator. They don't see their actions as wrong. They see getting caught as the mistake. And this reveals something critical about certain people. They don't have an internal moral compass. They have a risk assessment calculator. They don't ask, is this right? They ask, will I get away with this? You know people like this. Not killers, necessarily, but people who are only good when someone's watching. People who are only honest when there's a paper trail. People who are only kind when it benefits them. People who, if they thought they could get away with hurting you without consequences, absolutely would. These are people whose morality is entirely external. It's based on punishment avoidance, not on actual values. And the danger is this. If circumstances change, if they believe the consequences have disappeared, they will show you exactly who they've always been underneath. Because nothing inside them was stopping them. Only the fear of outside consequences. Has anyone ever shown you a completely different face the moment they thought no one was watching? The person who's charming in public but cruel in private. The person who follows rules only when there's surveillance. The person who's only loyal when loyalty is convenient. That's someone whose morality is external. And external morality is just calculated self-interest wearing a mask. The 11th truth is about isolation. A woman on death row who killed her husband said this in her final interview. I couldn't risk anyone telling him the truth about me. So I made sure he had no one else to talk to. This is tactical isolation. It's not that she locked him in a room. She systematically destroyed his other relationships. She'd badmouth his friends until he stopped seeing them. She'd create conflict with his family until they grew distant. She'd monitor his phone and email. She'd manufacture reasons why they couldn't attend social events. Slowly, over years, she made herself his only source of connection. And once she was his only source of information about reality, she could tell him anything. She could rewrite his memories, gaslight him, convince him that things that happened didn't happen, and things that didn't happen did. Because there was no one else left to fact-check her version of reality. This pattern is everywhere. Not just in relationships with killers. In any relationship with a controller. They isolate you, subtly at first. Your friends don't really care about you like I do. Your family is toxic, you should cut them off. Why do you need other people when you have me? And the isolation feels like intimacy. Like you're so close you don't need anyone else. But it's not intimacy. It's monopoly. They're ensuring you have no outside perspective. No reality check. No one to tell you that what's happening to you isn't normal. Who in your life has slowly separated you from other people? Who seems uncomfortable when you're close to others? Who creates drama with everyone who cares about you? You're not in a special bond. You're in a cage. And they're not keeping you close out of love. They're keeping you isolated out of control. Because the moment you talk to someone else, the moment you get an outside perspective, the moment you're reminded that this isn't how people should treat each other, their power evaporates. Your mind is not entirely your own. Especially when one person controls every voice you hear. The 12th truth is about charm. A serial killer in Florida was famous for being one of the most charismatic people anyone had ever met. Even his victims' families said they understood how people fell for him. In his final interview, he said, "Charm is just observation and mirror work. You watch what people want, and you become it." This is manufactured charm. It's not genuine warmth. It's strategic performance. He described studying people like a predator studies prey. Noticing what makes them smile, what makes them trust, what makes them feel special, and then delivering exactly that, like an actor delivering lines. He said the secret is simple. Make people feel like you see them, really see them. Because most people feel invisible, and anyone who makes them feel seen can make them do almost anything. But here's the warning sign. Charm that intense, that immediate, that perfectly calibrated to your vulnerabilities, that's not connection. That's calculation. Real connection builds over time. It's messy. It has missteps. It involves actual vulnerability and uncertainty. But manufactured charm is smooth from minute one. It's too perfect, too fast, too exactly what you needed to hear. And the truly dangerous part? It feels amazing. You feel understood in a way you've never felt before. That's the hook. That's the trap. Because once you're addicted to feeling that seen, that special, that chosen, they own you. And by the time you realize the charm was a weapon, you're too attached to walk away easily. Who made you feel more special in 1 week than people you'd known for years made you feel? Who seemed to understand you immediately without you having to explain yourself? Who mirrored your values, your interests, your energy with suspicious perfection? Real people clash sometimes. Real people misunderstand. Real people take time to sync up. But predators don't have time for organic connection. They manufacture instant intimacy because it's more efficient. The 13th truth came from a man in Mississippi who killed his business partner. He said something that reveals how predators think about relationships. I never saw him as a friend. I saw him as useful. When he stopped being useful, he stopped mattering. This is transactional humanity. Every relationship is evaluated on a cost-benefit basis. What can you do for me? What access do you give me? What resources do you provide? And the moment the answer is nothing, you're disposable. Completely disposable. He described friendships as investments. He invested time and charm and false intimacy because it paid returns. But the moment an investment stops performing, you divest. This is how certain people operate in every relationship. They're not connecting. They're collecting. Collecting contacts. Collecting favors. Collecting people who might be useful someday. And you can spot them by how they treat people who can't do anything for them. How does someone treat the waiter? The janitor? The homeless person on the street? How do they treat you when you're going through a hard time and can't contribute anything? How do they treat people who used to be useful but aren't anymore? That's the real them. Because when utility is gone, so is the performance. Has anyone ever dropped you the moment you stopped being useful? Has anyone ever been intensely interested in you when you had something they wanted and then vanished the moment that thing was gone? That's not flakiness. That's not life getting busy. That's someone who never saw you as a person to begin with. You were always just a resource. And resources, when depleted, get discarded without a second thought. The 14th truth is about fantasy. A serial killer in Washington said something in his final hours that forensic psychologists are still analyzing. I lived the murders in my head thousands of times before I did them in real life. By the time I actually did it, it felt like I'd already done it before. This is the power and danger of fantasy rehearsal. He didn't wake up one day and commit violence. He spent years imagining it, refining it, perfecting it in his mind. And every time he fantasized, he desensitized himself a little more. The fantasy made the reality possible. Because by the time the opportunity came, it didn't feel like crossing a line. It felt like finally doing something he'd been practicing mentally for years. Now this is important. Fantasy itself isn't dangerous. Everyone fantasizes. But fantasy that someone returns to obsessively, that they elaborate in increasing detail, that they seem to enjoy more than actual human connection, that's rehearsal. And you can sometimes see the signs. Someone who talks about violence casually. Someone who has detailed revenge fantasies they share too freely. Someone who seems to take pleasure in imagining other people's suffering. Someone whose internal world seems richer and more engaging than their external one. These might be warning signs that fantasy has crossed from escape into rehearsal, from imagination into pre-action. Who in your life has elaborate violent fantasies they seem a little too comfortable sharing? Who jokes about hurting people in ways that feel too detailed to be jokes? Who seems to idealize suffering? I'm not saying thought crime is real. I'm saying that predators often announce themselves if you're paying attention. They test the waters with their words before they test them with their actions. And your discomfort with their words is information. Trust it. Your mind is not entirely your own, especially when someone has been fantasizing about violating it for longer than you've known them. The 15th and final truth is the one that changes everything. A man on death row in Texas, executed 17 years ago, said this in his final statement, and it's been quoted ever since. The scariest thing I can tell you is that I'm not special. I'm not rare. I'm not even particularly smart. I'm just the one who got caught. Let that settle in. He wasn't claiming to be a criminal mastermind. He wasn't claiming to be extraordinarily evil. He was claiming to be ordinary. And he said there are people walking free right now who have done what he did or worse. People who are better at hiding it. People who chose different victims. People who had better luck. He said if you think evil is rare or obvious or somehow different from everyday humanity, you're exactly the kind of person evil targets. Because you're not looking for it. This is the final truth from death row. The monsters aren't always obvious. They don't always look like monsters. They often look like everyone else. They're your coworker, your neighbor, the person who makes you laugh, the person you trust. And the only way to protect yourself is to understand that monstrosity isn't a deviation from humanity. It's a possibility within it, within all of us. The difference is choice. Choice and repetition and desensitization and 1,000 small moments where someone decided that what they wanted mattered more than someone else's humanity. So here's what you do now. You pay attention. You trust your discomfort. You stop making excuses for people who show you exactly who they are. You stop confusing charm with goodness. You stop confusing calm with safety. You stop confusing isolation with intimacy. You understand that the distance between ordinary cruelty and extraordinary atrocity is just escalation. And escalation is always possible when someone has convinced themselves that you're not real. That you're just an obstacle. Just a problem. Just something in their way. You protect yourself by refusing to let anyone rewrite your reality. You protect yourself by maintaining connections they can't control. You protect yourself by trusting your gut when something feels wrong even if you can't articulate why. You protect yourself by remembering that your discomfort is data, not something to be explained away. You protect yourself by understanding that people who practice small cruelties are rehearsing for larger ones. And you protect yourself by never, ever forgetting this. Evil isn't rare. It's just usually more subtle than murder. Your mind is not entirely your own. But now, maybe you can take it back. Now you see what you weren't supposed to see. Now you know what they hope you never figure out. That the psychology of killers isn't alien. It's human. Disturbingly, terrifyingly human. And the tactics they used before they killed, the manipulation and the control and the isolation and the charm, those tactics are being used on someone right now. Maybe someone you know. Maybe someone you love. Maybe you. So ask yourself this and really sit with the question. Who in your life has shown you even one of these patterns? Just one. Because where there's one, there are usually more. And where there are more, you're not in a normal relationship. You're in a psychological battlefield. And the person across from you has been studying warfare while you thought you were in peacetime. You're awake now. You see now. And that makes you dangerous to them. Because the thing they fear most isn't punishment. It's exposure. It's someone who finally understands the game they've been playing. Someone who stops being a player and becomes a witness. Someone who can name what's happening and refuse to participate anymore. So name it. Call it what it is. And walk away from anyone who requires you to unsee what you've finally learned to see. Because your mind should be your own. Your reality should be your own. Your life should be your own. And anyone who's taken any of that from you has already shown you they're capable of taking more. The only question is how much more you'll let them take before you decide that understanding evil is the first step to escaping it. The inmates on death row gave you 15 truths. Now you have one choice. What will you do with them?